everybody to the first IPC webinar through the British Schools of the Middle East. It's something that we hope will be an opportunity for schools and like-minded people to come together, think about the IPC in their settings, or perhaps find out more about the IPC and look at how that really is something that we can develop together. We've got a great community, a professional community around, and everybody has so much experience. It's so great to be able to tap into that and be able to share. So that's what really this session is all about. And we hope that if you're live with us now, that you enjoy this session, join in. But if you're watching it at a later date via the video, that you can get a lot out of what we're talking about this afternoon. So we're just going to start by sort of sharing my screen so that we can go through the presentation, do all our introductions, and make sure that we've got everybody clear about where we are and what's happening here. So our session today is enhancing the IPC in the world and the local context. And we started just with an informal chat talking about how different that is for everybody, and how hopefully this will bring again some ideas about how people have worked with the IPC during different settings. We talk a lot about preparing young people to be learners and global citizens, and this requires a well planned out curriculum and an intentioned approach, making sure that we really do plan what we are doing. The recent pandemic has certainly highlighted again that there will be unpredictable circumstances and situations for our pupils ahead. But we do think the IPC remains as relevant and as necessary as ever. And so our opportunity today is to look at some of the challenges and then perhaps look at some of the positives that we can build on. So our speakers today will be Catherine Lester, and she's going to introduce herself in a minute, and myself, Sarah Brennan. So I'm here at Brighton College, head of preparatory school at Brighton in Dubai. Catherine, I'll ask you if you'd be able to introduce yourself here.
Well, hello everybody. My name's Catherine Lester, and I'm an executive principal at the Leo Academy Trust. I have been the head teacher of Cheam Fields Primary School for many years, and we joined the Leo Academy Trust in 2016. We are an IPC school, have been using it for a very long time, and I'm really excited to be here today to tell you a little bit about our journey and to sort of explain what we've been doing during this crazy time during the pandemic.
So thank you very much, Catherine. We know you bring lots of experience, so we'll head into your presentation.
Okay, so as I said, thanks Sarah for that. I am one of the executive principals at Leo Academy Trust. Leo stands for Learning Excellence and Opportunity, and I guess that's what we're all trying to do in every day that we are with our pupils and with our staff. So we are a group of 6 schools. We have about 3,500 pupils and over 400 staff. And I'm the strategic lead for 3 of those schools, one being Cheam Fields Primary School, where I was head for many years, the other being Cheam Common Infants and Cheam Common Juniors. Now, we are a Google school. All of our schools use Google, and Google Classroom is our main platform, as well as many of the other G Suite add-ons that we use. Our digital strategy has been really key to how quickly we've been able to switch to remote learning, as every one of our children in Key Stage 2 has a Chromebook provided by the school, which they use every day in school and they take home daily for their home learning. Key Stage 1, during the lockdown, we've been able to provide children who don't have devices, or maybe there are multiple children in families who need extra devices, we've been able to provide those for the children, and also dongles where children may not have access to Wi-Fi. And so at the moment, we've currently had 2 complete national lockdowns. Each time we've partially opened for key workers and vulnerable children. So in lockdown 1, that began in March, we had key worker and vulnerable children in school. The numbers were quite low to start off with, but as soon as remote learning, it was remote learning for all the other children. In June, we saw the return of nursery, reception year 1 and year 6, and the rest of the classes remaining learning remotely. During the time, as well as our English, Maths and our IPC offer, we were able to utilise across the trust our specialist teachers, and we were able to continue to provide in a virtual way French, Mandarin, music and PE. We were also able to offer the children themed days and weeks such as Sports Week and Ocean Day, Art Week, the things that they always have enjoyed when they were in school. And these were hugely popular, although done in a virtual way. Children sent in their work and families celebrated that together. And we tried in lockdown 1 to really mirror what the children would have had they been in school. And during the lockdown 1 also, for our staff, we were able to offer a real enhanced programme of CPD. Many of our staff achieving the various levels of Google competency, and we also launched a CPD YouTube channel, which was really useful. And also this year we've had our first remote Leo conference, and that was also a very successful event. So in September, we returned with really strict risk assessments. We had systems restricting movement, and we had this wonderful new educational term, which I'm sure you've all heard of, is bubbles. It's a replacement word for classes. And during this time, from September to December, we had 4 bubble closures in our schools and numerous of children and staff self-isolating. But because our digital strategy is really well established, we were able to swap to remote learning and in most cases ready for learning for the next day. And the class teams, pupils and parents are all very used to working in this way now. Unfortunately, in December, it saw transmission rates in London rise dramatically, and it was now also having an impact on our younger pupils. And so in the last week of term, we had 9 positive cases, resulting in around 150 families and 9 members of staff having to self-isolate. And this was meaning for many of them that they would be missing the Christmas that we had been promised with our families. So it was a great relief when the Prime Minister moved London into Tier 4. So that meant there was no mixing in households inside and out, and we were all in the same boat. So in January, we began lockdown 2. We started on January the 4th with an inset day and preparation day for staff, because it was a very quick turnaround. And then on the 5th of January, we returned with partial opening. Now we have more key workers than we had before, because the criteria has widened, and we were able to offer a significantly better provision for lockdown 2, with a blend of live lessons, recorded lessons. And what we're saying now is that we're offering the same curriculum, but it's taught and accessed in a different way. So during this time, context of our talk today, during this time, the risk could have been that we got so caught up with the operational side and aspects of school and running schools that learning might have been pushed to the side. And for all of us here today, and as schools who have IPC at the centre of our curriculum, we know how important improving learning is. It's the centre of everything we do. As IPC schools, we call our pupils learners. We focus on 3 types of learning: knowledge, skills, understanding, and we have learning goals, both in personal learning goals and international learning goals. Learning is meant to be our thing. So this is our story, just to share a little bit about how the IPC curriculum has helped us and continues to help us through this time. Can I have my next slide, please, Sarah? Well, as we all know, the IPC uses a thematic approach within each unit. This means that although the subjects are independent, they're also interdependent, so learners can make links between subjects in the theme, and this helps to develop different viewpoints within the same unit of work. Now, in lockdown 1, we were really conscious that parents may have had several children in different mileposts, all trying to learn at different times at different rates and different units. So what we tried to do was link all of the learning to a similar theme across the mileposts. We thought if the theme was the same, it might help parents to manage the learning in a better way. An example of this was we chose the overall generic theme as oceans. So in milepost 1, we used Treasure Island, in milepost 2, Island Life, and in milepost 3, Earth as an Island. And this helped us to design lessons and activities, and also choice boards for the children and families to choose an activity that they were really interested in. All learning at different levels and depths, but with the same overarching themes. And here you can see on the left, a choice board for Key Stage 1, and on the right, a choice board for milepost 2. We also chose reading text from CLEAP, CLPE, or the Power of Reading, to help us link our English learning to the overarching theme. And the IPC has formed collaborations with CLEAP, CLPE, whereby most of the units are linked to a high quality text. So we chose for milepost 1, during the theme of oceans, the storm whale. For milepost 2, Oliver and the Seaweeds, and a great book for milepost 3, Maps. This great resource can be found in the resources tab. If you click on documents to the IPC collaborations, and you'll find all the collaborations that IPC have, including CLEAP. And there you'll find the mapping documents that map the text to the unit. It's really useful. The parents told us that they found this was really useful as a way to manage learning at home. And for the children at school, the teachers found this approach useful also because they were able to arrange whole class activities to share together in their bubbles. And so that if classes were mixed in a bubble, for example, nursery or year 1, nursery or reception, or year 1 or 2, then the theme was the same and it was easy for the children to access. Can I have our next slide, please, Sarah? So when we returned in September, we were really very much concerned about the children's wellbeing, as many of you will have been too. We wanted to try to recover lost learning opportunities, but we also wanted to celebrate what the children had learnt during the lockdown experience. Many of the children had learnt new skills. Many had showed us how they could ride their bikes, or cooking skills and researches, and becoming independent to follow their own interests. This, of course, sadly was not the case for all the children, and we knew we had to return to school to recover some of those lost learning opportunities. So using the lessons we'd learned from lockdown 1 and in preparation for full reopening, we devised a whole school overarching theme called We Are All Heroes. And many of you will have seen that the UK would come out every Thursday night to clap for our heroes. This is something the children were used to, and the sign of the rainbow. We wanted to let them know that they were heroes too, and we'd appreciated how much they'd learned during this time. So again, we'd use the IPC thematic approach. We chose units and closely matched the learning goals to the lessons. For wellbeing, the topics we chose to help us was milepost 1, If You're Happy and You Know It. This is a new unit and can be found in the IPC 2020. It's really wonderful. Milepost 2, we chose Shaping Up, especially the society tasks. And for milepost 3, we used Express Yourself. And we came up with this unit of work to help us celebrate and learn from the good news stories that also had happened during lockdown. For example, our British pollinators and wildflowers thriving in the time that the roads had been quiet. We used our learning goals and lesson ideas from the unit Green Fingers and Let's Plant It and Roots and Shoots. Also, the Earth, Our Home, and Do You Live Around Here supported the learning that we wanted to do around our local area. Our learners in milepost 3 learnt about microorganisms, significant scientists, and how to deal with major global health problems. And so the unit Being Human was a great starting point for us. Now, we wouldn't normally mix and match units, and nor did we recommend it, but for us, it really felt the right thing to do at this time. We knew we had a limited time to capture what had just happened to us all, and we felt it was really important to help the children understand that what we had lived through was possibly and hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event. We have been using the IPC for a long time at our schools, and we know the units really well. So we were able to use the learning goals and to track the coverage and progression through the mileposts. And also the new documents, which can be found in IPC 2020 under the curriculum tab, are really also very useful and helpful if you want to try something like that. In slide 8, please. Thank you, Sarah.
It's frozen there. We just check and see what's happening.
No worries, these things happen.
Okay.
I'll just continue. So
okay, sorry, yes, well,
no, it's no problem. Yeah, just we'll catch up. So in we started using a fantastic new unit, If You're Happy and You Know It, for our planned delivery of wellbeing sessions. And we also used Jigsaw, which is another great collaboration with the IPC have used to support our PSHE. And in the If You're Happy and You Know It, a great text called The Colour Monster, we use that with our youngest learners. And when we catch up with the slides, you'll be able to see some of the fun and the learning that they had. We also introduced a new concept to us, which was called Zones of Regulation. This is a curriculum that helps children to gain skills in regulating their actions and emotions. And we thought this would be really, oh, there we go. Thanks, Sarah. You can see some of the work the children were doing during that time. But the zones of regulation help the children to gain skills in regulating their emotions and their actions. So we thought this would be really important when they returned. This in turn has led to children having increased self-control and being able to support, the curriculum also supports problem-solving skills. So the children identify their feelings and they're taught to independently self-regulate by making good choices. The zones of regulation is now built into our school day, and it's a common language for all. If we go on to slide 9 now, please. So using the Milepost 3 Express Yourself unit, we were able to use the learning goals and activities, but we just swapped out the artist. IPC is really flexible like that. It's a great tool to use, and you can fit it to your context. So the overview for the subject of art covers how feelings and emotions can inspire artists, what local artists feel about the home in their host country, and how you can show your feelings through art. So we chose the artist Frida Kahlo and her story about overcoming adversity, and the children used symbols to show the new things that they had learned during this difficult time in lockdown. And in the left-hand corner, you can also see that we studied Sonia Boyce, who is a British Afro-Caribbean artist living and working in London. She is a professor of Black art and design at the University of Arts in London. We thought this was also important for the children because at this time they were asking many questions about the events that they were seeing occurring during the time. Art seemed a really good place for us to start to learn about the Black Lives Matter issues. But going forward in our curriculum development, we want our curriculum to be one where every child sees themselves in it and not just something we think about in the month of October for the Black History Month. Can I have slide 10, please? So we also have a Forest School specialist teacher, and so combining her knowledge and expertise with the learning in Green Fingers and Earth Our Home, we were able to get the children outside exploring and investigating within the school grounds. Many of them told us that they hadn't been outside much, and they really enjoyed being able to explore the grounds. Unfortunately, we're still unable to go on trips to our surrounding parks and green spaces, and so our school grounds have become a sanctuary for our learning. This also built on the work of the Forest School activities that we'd used in distance learning during lockdown 2, when our learning was mostly remote. In slide 11, please. So IPC collaborations have been so helpful when we designed this unit of work, and I would recommend that if you're looking to enhance your IPC offer, then look in this section and check out some of the resources. They can be found in Documents section under Collaborations or the Curriculum tab in IPC 2020. Now, we use the Power of Reading approach as the basis of our English writing curriculum, and so CLPE or CLEAP, and also If You're Happy and You Know It unit were really useful in helping us to select those high quality texts to support our children when they returned to in discussing trauma, loss, emotion, perseverance and diversity, while we also ensured the basic skills were revisited, reviewed and progressed. So high quality texts and English skills are the golden thread that runs through all of the subjects in our curriculum offer. And if you haven't read After the Fall, I highly recommend it. It was a real uplift for my spirits at the time as well. A great text, and really enjoyed sharing that with the children. Now Press Play is another fantastic thing, collaboration with the IPC. And if you haven't seen that, it's really worth having a look. If we could have slide 12 now, please. Well, this is the image that we use when we're describing what it's like to be internationally minded. And for IPC schools, international is a specific area of learning. The international learning goals support learners in developing a curiosity and interest in the world. And during this time, there has been a great deal of opportunity to discuss the many global issues that we continue to face. And here I've highlighted some of the international learning goals that we looked at during our unit of We Are All Heroes. And also at the Leo Academy Trust, being an active citizen internationally, nationally and locally is one of our Leo 5 pupil outcomes. It is something we promote in being internationally minded. So this learning was highlighted on the lead up to Christmas, when we were astounded at the response from our families and our children, when collectively all of our schools raised around £16,000 for the local charity St. Raphael's. It was not only the money and the raising of the money, though, that sparked the children's interest, but there were other projects, such as giving up their own time to write letters to the elderly people in their care homes. And they were delighted to receive letters back from many of the residents, and also to write letters and cards to the most vulnerable in our communities who are still shielding and today, even now, suffering such loneliness. We were really incredibly proud that the learning goal 3.07 was deeply embedded within our community. So slide 13, please. I just thought I'd show you some of the learning platforms that we use and some of the apps. I can highly recommend Kahoot. You probably all know that one and use that. But last week we were able to run a virtual maths quiz for around 400 of our pupils in year 3 and 4 who joined in across the trust, which was a great thing. And of course you can see Jamboard, which is a staple now. And also Adobe Spark, the children are really enjoying learning about that. Toontastic, as different ways to present their work. I think in lockdown, we've really seen creativity in children in the way that they've enjoyed choosing the way they present their work, and it's something that we're going to be mindful of and remember when we come back, whenever we widely reopen. Also, we've purchased Doodle Maths and Doodle English, and we've found that Doodle Maths is a real success with the children, a real hit. So slide 14, please, Sarah. I'll just continue. So we have found that during this time, oh, there it is. We found during this time that we could have to do everything we can to engage with parents. We need to support them, to praise them and encourage them, because this time's not been easy for any of us. Many of our parents are juggling homeschooling as well as their full-time jobs. And here are some of the ways that we've done that. Over the years, we've created a home learning site, which has been really useful. To have various different activities that children can engage in. We've got virtual clubs for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 and early years, and that keeps children a little bit busy for about 15 minutes. We've also got about our specialist teachers, and this one is highlighting our forest school offer, but also we have music, which has been very noisy in the households, but enjoyable. And also we've created a distance learning site so that if you click on that, there's a whole range of different activities that you can engage in. As well as that, in our lockdown 2, we have 2 Google Hangouts daily, one in the morning to set up the learning for the day and to encourage children to be as independent as they can. We also catch up in the afternoon to have story time, poetry reading, and to celebrate the learning that the children have done. The teachers have been fantastic at this, and it has been really useful for parents. During lockdown 2, we've also continued to listen to the concerns of our parents about learning being so heavily based around screens. So we've introduced a photography competition trust-wide to get children out and about. We've had some great entries. We've had a winter sports activity, which is probably useful today as the snow lies on the ground. We've upped our PE offer, and our choice boards now offer many different hands-on opportunities for children to engage with. As with all schools and at all times, communication has been absolutely key. And so also we have a live chat line where parents can call in with any difficulties. We have year group class emails where families can celebrate their work but also ask questions. And we continue to offer weekly phone calls or more to our most vulnerable families to encourage and support them. And if we notice in our Google Hangouts or we hear through our live chats that anyone's having a blip, then we give them a little ring, because we think that communication and just checking in with each other is really important at this time. It's always good to be kind. So slide 15, please, Sarah. So all of our events have been virtual with our parent engagement this year. Usually our schools are brimming with parents and with something that we encourage, but all of our parent consultations have been online. All of our workshops and support workshops have been online, particularly on how to access Seesaw and our Google Classroom. These have been live and recorded, and we've had many parents join us with those. All of our admissions and school tours have been online, which is quite difficult. And also what we've found is that social media has been a great tool. I know sometimes we can shy away from that, but at this time it's been a great tool for us, and Twitter in particular. It's been great for us in supporting parents and signposting different events that are happening, and to make sure that things like our photography competition has gathered momentum through that. It's been great for children to see their work, and for teachers also to see the things that they have done. They've loved seeing their work celebrated and enjoyed by publishing it on Twitter. And we've had lots of responses from authors and artists and the digital resources that we use. We've also sent home video montages from the staff and the children, and just to check in with people and to give them a little bit of a laugh, and to let them know that we are caring. And during Christmas, when they couldn't attend their children's nativities and Christmas concerts, which is usually so well attended, we sent out a video message and montage and song. And also we sent those to the elderly in the care homes, which were a great hit. And now, as we are approaching a Wellbeing Week, we continue to send out those messages that parents are doing a great job, and the messages that of well-being and mental health. So, and we are really believing that we're strengthening that community, that spirit, and making sure that that fourth circle in our international minded image is coming to the forefront. So, in conclusion, now I turn to slide 16. So how can IPC help us to continue to improve learning and to help us to respond to the difficulties that we constantly face? Well, we believe wellbeing is here to stay, and that we'll be using many of the new units, and the learning goal document in the IPC 2020 is going to be really useful for that. We're going to continue to keep asking ourselves questions such as, what have we learned during this period? What's working now? What's working well? And I think more importantly, moving forward, what we will keep, what we will lose, and what we are rethinking and innovating because of this time. We're going to be continuing to use the IPC 2020. It's such a great resource. And again, although we had launched the new personal learning goals, we're going to make sure that that work is going to be continued. And we've really enjoyed, and the children have as well, linking units together under an overarching theme. And so at the moment, we're building a history whole school unit where in Milepost 2, we'll look at scavengers and settlers. At the same time, in Milepost 3, the children will learn about parts of the Bold and the Brave, the Great, the Bold and the Brave unit. And we're going to be continuing on linking our units to high quality texts. More and more texts are coming to light all the time, and there's some really great ones that link really well to the units. Also, we will continue with the collaborations such as CLEAP, Jigsaw, Now Press Play, and also the sustainable goal units, which is really worth a look. So that's a real run through of some of the things that we've been doing and thinking about, and I hope that was useful. And I'm going to hand back to Sarah now, who's going to share some of the wonderful things that they're doing as well.
Sarah, you're on mute.
Sorry, I picked myself out. No.
I think I'm back in again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can
Yes,
hear you
Sarah.
now.
Yes, okay, thank you. So thank you so much. There's so much there that you were able to share with us about what you've been doing in your experience. Such an inspirational as well. So many of the different ideas that I'm sure so many of us will be able to take away with us. And that really is exciting. That's what this is all about, just seeing what people have done, how creative they've been, and how we can all develop together. So thank you so much, Catherine. Really exciting work that you've been doing, and we really appreciate that. So just talking about myself a little bit then. So I mentioned at the beginning that I'm Sarah Brennan. I'm the head of prep school at Brighton College in Dubai. I've worked in international education for my whole career, so definitely something that I'm very, very interested in and committed to. I introduced the IPC into an international school in Germany probably about 7 years ago, and now in Dubai I've introduced it here. And I feel that it really does provide so much which is exciting about learning, and an approach to learning, a focus on learning that really benefits our pupils here. And so as we go forward, we have all been through different times and different settings, and we can't deny that there have been changes and challenges. But one of the things that we have to recognise is firstly that there were challenges, and then how do we go forward? In the first instance, I think time became a lot of the challenge. All credit to teachers all around the world for the different ways that they had to adapt to a new setting. There was so much work involved. I think none of us really understood at the beginning quite how much was going to be asked of teachers as they came into working in different settings, particularly distance learning, blended learning. And there was no preparation or training for this. We all had systems and platforms in the schools that we worked in, but we really were not proficient at being able to adapt this to what we were going to need. So the teacher workload was absolutely huge. And the fact that there were just so many people working and struggling to make sure that they could get on top of this is a credit, I think, to our profession. and the fact that they have achieved so much in this time. When we look at the different settings, it did look different in different places around the world. And for us, we certainly were e-learning for the first 6 months. And then we've been back in school, but there's still some blended learning because there have some distance learners, just 1 or 2. And we have to be able to make sure that they can still access the curriculum. What it does mean is that if you're not careful, there can be a relentless amount of work involved, because pupils can almost access teachers all the time. And so being really careful with how we can balance that, being able to give the feedback that pupils need, as well as creating the learning experiences, becomes really, really difficult. And I think we've all had to manage a little bit of discipline ourselves to be able to get this right. The fact also is that we can be in virtual meetings at any sort of time and place, and this is an advantage as well as a disadvantage. The fact that we can have this meeting now is fantastic. We can all be in different places, and this would have been a difficult situation to have been able to access quite so quickly. But we now can, and we need to be able to make sure we can blend this in to the balance of our day, because teacher well-being is just as important as the well-being of pupils and people in our community. Another of the challenges and sort of changes is perhaps curriculum pressures. Talking from our experience, we find that fitting the IPC into a very full curriculum, a very full timetable, puts a lot of pressure onto schools. Certainly when we were distance learning, we have host country regulations, so things like Arabic, Islamic studies, social studies, which need to fit into the curriculum. We have, for the younger children, and particularly prioritizing core subjects, because we wanted to make sure that the time, because a lot of parents were working alongside their pupils, their children, we had to make sure that this really was getting what they needed to be able to ensure that everybody had the curriculum to go forward. But it did put on a lot of pressure onto the IPC, and we had to make sure, how could we alleviate this? How could we make sure that we were still getting the quality in our provision for IPC? In our school, since we've been back, we've had additional pressures. We have to stagger the start and finish of our day. So suddenly we have chopped out a whole periods at the end of the day by finishing earlier in some of the classes. And again, that puts additional pressure on, and how do we manage all of that? I think the solutions is to make sure that we really are looking at quality over quantity, that we are really cherry picking the parts of what we are able to do and make sure we're doing them really well. It clearly, getting the cross-curricular connections is a key to being able to make sure that we can do as much as possible. Even for us, involving specialist teachers, because we do have specialist teachers who work with PE, with art, sometimes with the science in our older Key Stage 2 classes. Making sure that they are linked together was a challenge, because even our staff meetings were looking different and their time got a little bit pressurized. So we had to make sure that we found a time to be able to bring people together and to be able to talk about the different units and to build up a map of what that was going to look like. But once that's done and there is the buy-in from everybody, then things really do seem to make a difference and seem attainable. Being time smart as well is about looking at so many different aspects that we can blend into our units. Certainly when we put together our route planner, we're making sure that we have the coverage, but we're also looking at our calendar to bring in the links that we can from those areas, looking at our Arabic and social studies curriculum, bringing in the links there, and we are finding that there are those links once we look at it. Of course, we would like to do more trips. We aren't able to do those yet, but we are getting events being built in to our calendar now, and some of those are virtual ones. Some of them are ones that we can do perhaps where we would have done them across the whole college. We're now doing them in classes, but bringing back some of those real links to working together, and some collaboration helps us to be able to make sure our units are really the children are getting the most out of them. We've all recognise, I think, that EdTech is something which we've all developed in very, very quickly. We have teacher competence and skill development, I think, probably on a very regular basis. We're being able to see how we can do new things and be able to incorporate that to make sure that the learning in the classroom is of quality, and that's so important. Certainly with us, we've been using Teams a lot, we've been using Seesaw, iPad, iMovies. There's lots of different ways that we're being able to put together all of our different learning activities, and then sharing those resources. So we have our own as school libraries of activities, and they're going also into the community ones. So I'm sure other people are able to do that, and this might be something that we can look at as a community to see what has worked well with different units and how we can share some of those. I think pupil competence and skill development is also really key, and we're able to see them become far more independent. At the beginning, it was very difficult to be able to have children working on their own, and it involved so much of parental input. But now we're seeing that changing, and that really is something where we're getting so much more, and this is what we want to keep. These are the aspects which will be here for the long term. When we continue looking at this, I think online safety is something that we became very aware of as well. As we look at well-being, we know that there's so many people online. There's added risks concerned to safeguarding, and that has happened during distance learning, and so it becomes really important that we really approach this with the pupils, have these discussions, talk to them about e-safety, and making sure they know what to do in different scenarios. And so the IPC does have some great units related to this that we've been able to work with our pupils, and just making sure that we had, like our sign there was, do you know the sign for help? It was something that we talked to all our pupils about, so they always know that they could indicate they needed help if they were in a group session or they had the right people to go to. Professional development is something which I think we all can benefit from now, with there being so much available. So many free training materials are around. We're able to see training for different forums and platforms, which is really important. And we're able to build that into our own time. It's not a question anymore of having to go on a course and to be there physically. The fact that we can do this all remotely means that there's flexibility there for all of us. And so I think that's something that we really can see as a benefit from this time. When I'm looking at resources, there are so many resources around. and you can find them in so many different places. Of course, we have all the units which have been developed from the IPC, so over the IPC and the IPC 2020. But there's also, for teachers, we have to look around in different places as well. So there are other places where we can find the things that we need. Looking at my field work, it is exciting to see the number of online courses and how these can be developed and be a way for us as a school to continue our journey of learning. And so I'm sure people have seen through the My Fieldwork site there, professional learning, online courses, and you can register for those. Also, I think the fact that the community chat is a great way to share and to see what other schools are doing. And this is probably one of the things that may be underutilized, and we could develop that more because what we do see is so many great opportunities which we've enjoyed in our schools and got excited about, and to be able to share that so then others could do it, it would be such an advantage, and probably one of the things we could perhaps make a note to self on to say let's get more involved in that. One of the things going forward then is the fact that the IPC still has the innovation and still is moving forward, and I think that's what we want to see. And the relevance to the world around us is key. The fact that we are doing units to do with young entrepreneurs, the creators and communicators, these are all very relevant to what we're seeing around the children, and they need to be adaptable, and they have been able to get really involved in some of these wonderful units. The personal learning goals have their place more than ever, and talking about things like resilience, communication, adaptability, and how we talk to our pupils about that and celebrate that. They've done so well, and we want to celebrate all that they have done. The fact that we're getting regular updates from IPC, we've got Milepost 1 2020, we've got Milepost 2, a new version coming up. We're looking at world context of change, and this still is something which makes it really relevant to our pupils, and global citizenship. When we're looking forward, I think the fact that the continued learning focus is got to be a strength in what we do. We see the different areas of well-being being addressed, and we want to make sure that we do have that duty of care to educate and support our young people. We know that we've been focusing a lot on mindfulness and what that looks like across our school, and the fact that we had No Tech Tuesdays as a break from the technology that people were concerned that the children were on too often, and then this meant that they were able to do sort of well-being activities in those sessions. There is the health and well-being learning goals, which has been produced by Fieldwork, and these look at the 4 sort of key points of growing and changing, brain and metacognition, digital citizenship, and of course financial literacy. And so these skills are real skills which are really beneficial to our pupils and enhance their own learning, but allow them to know more and take responsibility for their own well-being and understanding of where they are. And I think that's been really important, and we know that this is something that they really are getting to understand better and will need longer term. It is for the long term. So that comes to the end of, the things that we have been doing in our 2 different settings. We would be happy to know if you had any questions, if there's anything you'd like to ask. anything that you have been doing yourselves in these times, which you think would be useful to share. I think we're able to open this up now, so it might be nice if you want to raise your hand, then we can sort of talk through this. We've got different people here. Perhaps it'd be nice to see you here. We've got Lindsay. Lindsay, I can see your name there. Would you mind just saying hello and just telling us a little bit where you come from? Maybe not be able to be in a situation where you can. Is Merrin there? Merrin, you're able to?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm an IPC TA and I'm from Karachi, Pakistan.
Welcome. It's lovely to have you with us today. And if you do have any questions, do let us know if there's anything you'd like to follow up on.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay. We are going to put resources into the section where it says documents and resources. So these will be things that you can reach at any point. So you just have to go into the BSME website and you'll be able to locate them then. We certainly do hope that this has been useful for you and that you will be able to share with colleagues. I think this is one of the messages that we will be just trying to spread as we go forward. Do share what we've been talking about. Do share what you're doing with us, because we would very much like to have everybody involved and being together. Just trying to see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay. I think we've got everyone through. So thank you very much for joining us. I think we'll end our session here. And we look forward to following up. There will be other sessions coming up in the coming months. And a real very special thank you to Catherine for joining us today. Your experience there and sharing that with us has been really, really exciting. So we look forward to bringing some of that into our own schools.
Thanks, Sarah. And similarly with you, you made it quite a few little notes, so I'm sure I'll be back in touch quite soon.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.